When we have seen democracy under attack, especially when we've seen it in its most brutal form of fascism. Throughout history, people in the arts have always found a way to stand up, speak out, and push back.
Welcome to The Stakes. I'm Brad Rourke with the Charles F. Kettering Foundation. We're a nonprofit, nonpartisan operating foundation that focuses on advancing and defending inclusive democracy. Today, I'm talking to Kettering Senior Fellow Dr. Johnnetta Betsch Cole. Dr. Cole, thanks for being here.
My joy to be in conversation with you, Brad, is a joy. And I must say, in these particular times, each of us needs to find joy.
Thank you, Dr. Cole. Dr. Cole is a trailblazing anthropologist, educator, and cultural leader, served as president of both Spelman and Bennett colleges, and led the Smithsonian National Museum of African Art, a nationally respected voice on diversity, equity, and inclusion, has received over 70 honorary degrees and numerous honors, including the National Humanities Medal from President Biden. The new administration has moved rapidly to do away with so-called woke policies and also to use government power to pressure other institutions to change. The world of museum, arts, and culture has not at all been spared, from the takeover of the Kennedy Center, whose board Donald Trump now chairs, to a number of executive orders with names like ending radical and wasteful government DEI programs and preferencing, January 20th, and restoring truth and sanity to American history on March 31st. These have driven some museums to acquiesce or to keep their heads down, but we are also seeing courageous stands. And that is what we are talking about today. Dr. Cole, can you describe what you are seeing in the museum and cultural communities?
I am seeing courage. And courage comes in different forms. Let me say first, though, the importance of courage. I had the incredible privilege, my word again, and joy of knowing Dr. Maya Angelou well. Dr. Angelou said courage is the most important of all of the virtues, because without it, you cannot practice any other virtue consistently. We are so fortunate that during these troubled times, there are leaders in the world of art and museums who are being incredibly courageous. I think that when we have seen democracy under attack, especially when we've seen it in its most brutal form of fascism, throughout history, her story, their story, people in the arts have always found a way to stand up and speak out and push back.
One of the examples of that might be top of mind right now for many is an internal email that was sent by Secretary of the Smithsonian Institution, Secretary Lonnie Bunch III, who, in response to the executive order calling for restoring truth and sanity to American history, and to remove so-called woke ideology from the portrayals of history, Secretary Bunch wrote to all staff, all Smithsonian staff, "We remain steadfast in our mission to bring history, science, education, research, and the arts to all Americans. We will continue to showcase world-class exhibits, collections, and objects rooted in expertise and accuracy. As always, our work will be shaped by the best scholarship, free of partisanship, to help the American public better understand our nation's history, challenges, and triumphs. We remain committed to telling the multifaceted stories of this country's heritage. Dr. Cole, you led a Smithsonian Museum. Talk about the courage that it took for Secretary Bunch to pen such an email.
I worked very closely with Secretary Bunch as he was the principal leader in imagining and constructing and opening the National Museum of African American History and Culture. Given that the Smithsonian has such an intricate relationship with the federal government, the statement that Brother Secretary Lonnie Bunch made was full of courage. He's been making those kinds of statements throughout his time in the Smithsonian. I wanted to share this one. This is a statement he made just before the National Museum of African American History and Culture was about to open. He said, "As always, our work will be shaped by the best scholarship, free of partisanship, to help the American people better understand our nation's history, challenges, and triumphs. And when we err, we adjust, pivot, and learn as needed." He's a courageous leader.
Another form of courage is coming from the field. One of the areas that we see that is the Association of Art Museum Directors under Christine Anagnos. Dr. Cole, can you talk a little bit about Chris Anagnos' work and what you're seeing there?
Well, first I have to say, Sister Leader Chris Anagnos is amazingly and effectively courageous. I believe that the way that she is keeping museum directors informed is a form of resistance. When one is sitting at the head of one of our nation's many art museums, it is mighty, mighty wonderful to be receiving constantly from Chris information about what is going on and steps for responding if a museum director chooses to do so. But in the spirit of Chris, I must say this: she would be very uneasy unless I reminded all who are watching this conversation that we're having that she does not do this work alone. You see, I don't think in a time of trouble, a genuine leader can then decide to be collaborative, to work collectively. That is a necessary style of leadership, and I would say courageous leadership. I often think that not only does Chris have a clear sense of our museums through the work of the directors, but Chris lives with her son, who is a ballerina. And I am convinced that Chris's courageous actions are, of course, in the interest of the Association of Art Museum Directors, but it's also in the interest of our young people who themselves these days must find the courage to be in the arts.
Dr. Cole, let's talk about another form of courage. I'm thinking specifically about Laura Lott, who was former president of the American Alliance of Museums, but more recently was administrator of the National Gallery of Art, which is like the chief operating officer of that institution. In response to one of the executive orders, the National Gallery of Art dismantled and renamed its diversity, equity, access, and inclusion department. And on March 13th, Laura Lott resigned and wrote a message on LinkedIn for all to read. Can we talk a little bit about the courage it takes someone who is not at the very top of an organization to make such a statement and take such a step?
First, Brad, I would like to lift up the fact that while she was not in the top position, she was a substantially respected colleague, very much a part of the management of that museum. And so when, by an executive order, the National Gallery of Art was told that it had to close down any and all of its programming and exhibitions that are, in the words of those who demanded this, a woke set of actions. Laura Lott had a big decision to make. She could remain at the National Gallery of Art, where the top leadership decided that it would indeed respond to that executive order by doing what it demanded. But Laura Lott chose a different way to respond, a courageous way to respond. Laura Lott resigned from the National Gallery of Art. And I want to read, if I may, Brad, something that my dear sister friend Laura wrote on LinkedIn right after she had resigned. Please don't wait for me to pen dramatic op-eds or scream in all caps on social media. But you can expect me to strategically and courageously find ways to continue my important work alongside many amazing colleagues with shared values. I want to say something else about Laura Lott. Laura, I am sure, made the decision that she made not only for herself, but she was thinking about her daughter. She was wondering how Sienna would view her mother if she remained in that position. And you see, I think courage must be a response to where we are at a given moment in time. But it also must be a response to time that we will never experience. The time when those who are young will have inherited what we have done or not done.
Kettering Senior Fellow Dr. Johnnetta Betsch Cole, thank you for being with us today and lifting up the stories of these three remarkably courageous people.